Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. It is Olympic trials week, boys, and there was some major news besides that. I feel kind of bad for Cody Brewer. He got lost in the news cycle this week. And I paused at the beginning because I almost said Nike before USA Wrestling, GT, because we'll start with this. David Taylor to Nike. I called, for people watching or listening, I called Grant when it came out. And Grant was kind enough to tell me he'd been working on this for a while and was in the vault. And I said to him, I just want to post friends. My friends do more by 10 a.m. than your friends do all day. So first of all, congratulations to you and Shane, man. Huge get for you guys, and timing couldn't be better. I guess walk us through what you're allowed to walk us through.
Well, just very excited about being able to work with an athlete with the resume and background that David has. Very excited about him being with us and our brand. A lot of cool stuff that we want to be able to do together. And once again, like timing for the announcement and all that kind of stuff, like leading into Olympic trials is a really big deal. Also just a reigning Olympic gold medalist. So anytime that you can get one of those on your books is a good deal. Like, hey, you're in the transfer portal and all of a sudden you get a NCAA rating champion added to your roster. It's like, I'll take it. So once again, one of the best ambassadors of the sport internationally, well respected everywhere, and just very excited to be working with an athlete of that caliber, and just having the opportunity to have some fun in the sport of wrestling, and once again support people the way that they need to be supported. So just very excited to continue to be a part of his journey and try to support him the best that we can.
Well, and I think everybody that watches and listens to this podcast knows that the three of us are actually friends and would probably be doing this off the air if we weren't on the air. And sometimes we call each other just to have mental, I know me with Border Brawl, I'll call you guys and kind of get gassed up and, pep talk. And so GT, if next time you could get a guy who's the pound for pound best wrestler in the world with a huge social media presence instead of David, that'd probably be good. So really, really well done. Mark, you're just as a guy that heard about this, like most people, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could get a better get anywhere in the world. I don't care if he went international. I think he is considered pound for pound probably the best guy in the world right now, without a doubt. I've said that for a long time. The way he does things, does everything right. The training, the talking to kids, running a kids club, all those things, plus being able to focus on what he has to do as an individual. He's going to be an outstanding Division I coach if he ever decides to go that road. So, yeah, congrats, Grant.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep. So huge get. I mean, GT, are we allowed to know if there's going to be any T-shirts, shoes, hats, anything? I mean, do we know about this? Are we allowed to talk about this?
I mean, once again, it's still fairly early and all that kind of stuff. So once again, I think as that branding continues, I think there's some other things that just need to occur in totality. And I think there's some wrestling tournament that's going on in State College that we need to focus on first. And then we'll get to some of that stuff here in a bit.
I love it. All right. We mentioned him, Cody Brewer to Princeton. I think we'll talk about this more later, but certainly a big get for them. They had, for people that don't know, Joe Dubuque got the job. Sean Gray and him had both competed for that job. Sean eventually went out to Stanford with Ayers. They temporarily put Reese Humphrey in that slot. Frankly, probably so they had somebody else just running around with Joe at Nationals. And now they're going to build that staff out. So good get for them. The other interesting thing besides the John Smith stuff, which we're going to get to, is the portal. So Virginia Tech is big news in the portal. They go get Carter McGonigal, who's got 1 year left. I had several college coaches talking to me about it and several just people in wrestling. And I think the obvious thing was Lehigh's going to keep they're going to let McGonigal go and keep what they got, because what they got, Crookham had a great tournament, beat Vito twice. Maybe he wasn't 100%, but still beat him, and will be the preseason number 1 at 133. McGonigal's a great Band-Aid for Virginia Tech, so that's awesome. And then the one that Mark and I were talking about off air, Mark, your thoughts on this, Cooper Flynn goes in the portal, which surprised me. I'm guessing that means Ventresca is coming back, but Cooper Flynn was a guy that was ranked like everybody else in the world really high at one point this year, 125.
Yep.
And he could be an upgrade for several schools, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's, if he's not ranked in the top 8, I'd be amazed starting out the year. And if he doesn't at some point be the number 1 ranked kid in the country next year, that wouldn't surprise me the way 125 is. And it may continue to be that way. It's just there's so many good kids there. The parity is just unbelievable. So he is really going to help somebody. I don't know who that's going to be, but we could kind of throw that around later on.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important, I mean, GT, your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think just the portal in general, I think, is perplexing from the standpoint of like, you're just going to have like almost like a 3-card Monte where everybody kind of just mixes around and you basically get to like, well, hey, we're getting this and this and this. And like, you're kind of putting all the pieces together, but like, you never really know. I think the biggest thing that I think we think like, hey, this kid's a solidified starter at this location, and all of a sudden he jumps in the portal, like that changes up your whole, like your money structure. Like to say like a Cooper Flynn leaving Virginia Tech, like I'm sure that they were banking on him being their guy for a long time. Like, and then all of a sudden, like he jumps in and you're just like, well, I haven't even been looking at 25 pounders. I haven't been looking at 74 pounders for the past 2 years because I got a guy that's a blue chip recruit.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of like pivoting that coaching staffs have to do. And I think the portal, especially if you're like just plugging a hole for a year or trying to like get 1 or 2 years out of a specific athlete, it lends itself to like when you already have a team. But if you only have like certain weight classes that you're like already like guaranteed, like, hey, this is my guy, and all of a sudden he goes away, you're really scrambling for one, dual meets and also points for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So last week, by the way, if you're looking for last week's podcast, hopefully it'll be up by the time this one's up. Gary Ab and I are having Google Meet or Google Drive issues, but I interviewed Kevin Dresser last week on Matt Chat, and we talked about the portal, and Dresser's been active in it and also active talking about it. And he mentioned like Feldkamp specifically, and he said, hey, he might have only scored 3 or 4 points, but those 3 or 4 points are what helped get us in 4th place. And, as you drive further away from something, you forget most things but the headline, right? Like I lost in the national finals in junior college 100 years ago. I'm the only one that remembers that. Everybody else just remembers who won, right? And, so like for 10 years from now, Iowa State people will remember that they placed ahead of Iowa that year. And it won't matter if it was Will Feldkamp's points or Grant Turner's points or whoever's points. It's just, it happened. And these guys are paid for those results. So you're going to see a lot of this. I mean, Cooper Flynn could go to a lot of places. Like Michigan needs a 25. I said to Mark, if Drake Ayala is cutting hard, I could see Cooper Flynn to Iowa and Drake Ayala to 33. I mean, there's other schools that you don't think it's as likely. I mean, like Penn State's got an abundance of kids at 25 right now with Braden and with Luke. I think Oklahoma State's really happy with Spratley. But, I mean, I don't think Missouri, they have certain, just kind of going through some of these teams off the top of my head. But I do think we're going to see him end up at a top 12 program because he's good. And, he can make a big difference. All right. Normally, This would be the only thing we talked about the whole episode. John Smith retires. I think most people know, but his press conference was yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday, by the way, instead of our normal Thursday time, because I believe Grant is in the air tomorrow, and I am in the air on Thursday to the Olympic trials. I'll go first. I mean, my family has a good relationship with the Smith family, and I told the story about when John literally beat the life out of me when we wrestled one time. But he was really a mentor to me when I was coaching in junior college. He talked to me about the importance of recruiting. He talked about the importance of when you have five-star athletes, about talking to them a little bit differently. I think John Smith was such a good coach that you forget about how good of an athlete he was in one way. I think Cale Sanderson is approaching that too. Maybe not forget, but just like this guy, if he was just an athlete and then became a CPA, would have GOAT status. And then to do what he did as a coach. GT, you've been around Coach Smith in Stillwater, and it's a whole different experience. Like, that guy is the mayor of Stillwater. I don't know who the real mayor of Stillwater is, but that guy's the mayor of Stillwater. Like, you get stopped at lunch with him. Like, everybody just wants to grab a picture. When they're winning, everybody wants to pat his back. When they had a couple down years, everybody's telling him what he should be doing better. And I'll tell a quick Coach Smith story that's kind of funny. Whenever Joe Smith was in high school, so however long ago that was, John was going down to watch Joe at junior duels. And I can't remember. I don't know how I got down there. I think I went down there with Guerrero or Malanconico, but then on the way back, John was coming back with his wife, Tony. And John goes, David, I want you to take my truck. I said, Coach, I don't know how to drive a truck, which is true. I don't even know if I could get up in the seat, but where do you want me to leave the keys? And he goes, just leave them on the seat. I said, what do you mean? He goes, no one's going to steal my car, or no one's going to steal my truck. I literally had him write it on a napkin, because in St. Louis, that truck would be stolen. So just an awesome mentor to so many people. I think, if you have social media, you're seeing all the different posts from, I like Hardell's, he doesn't call them ex-athletes, his former athletes. I like that better. The coaches, just the whole wrestling community. So GT, I'll let you go first here, because you obviously have a working relationship with John and with Oklahoma State. They're a Nike school. Yeah, I mean, just either your thoughts or any situations you'd like to tell everybody about.
Well, it's hard. I mean, I think, like, from everything that I've watched, all the press conferences, I've watched John up there with the athletic director. I've seen some of the, posts and things from, former athletes: Pendleton, Coleman Scott, Kevin Ward, Neil Earsman, Obi Blanc, Mark Branch, Popolizio, all these guys that are like, the former athletes from John W. And I think every single one of them, and I think the same with me, is I can't put into words like what John means for the sport of wrestling. I don't know what, and what, to your point, the city of Stillwater, how many people have traveled to Stillwater, Oklahoma, been to Gallagher-Iba in the tenure that he's been there. Like John mentioned in his press conference that, he's lived in this building. Like,
Yes.
I've done camps here. I've trained here. I've coached here. I've wrestled here. I've experienced everything that I possibly can in life, in Stillwater. And he had a couple of really funny, once again, John Smith is one of the most hilarious people without him trying to be funny. It's just him being. But he was mentioning, and once again, not to like give you any spoilers on some of his stuff, but he was talking about his single leg. He's like, like, my single leg got me my house. My low single got me my farm. He got me my other farm, got me my truck. Like all the things, like he's like just basically praising what he's done for wrestling. And as a former wrestler that competed against Oklahoma State athletes and John Smith when I was in college, there's nothing but class from John Smith. even when they were dominant, even when they were the Penn State of that time period where they were like, had all of those teams that were just juggernauts of a lineup class all the time. And I think it stems from the top, the way that he's handled his program, the way that he's, developed people. I mean, once again, we could have 4 shows just specifically on the John Smith effect on international men's freestyle. He was also one of the women's coaches in 2017. Like, he was helping the women prepare for the world championships and was on staff, like helping women try to achieve their international goals. He was on the grapple on the gridiron with Iowa, setting the attendance record for most people ever to attend a wrestling event in the world, I believe. Once again, I don't know if
United States, sure.
Yeah, Gary, you can fact check for me if I'm outside of my mind. But once again, that happens because John Smith and Tom Brands and the programs of Oklahoma State and Iowa bringing that together to make that what it is. And he's a part of that history. I don't think we can say enough about him as a coach, competitor. I mean, once again, he's physically almost the GOAT for the United States and 6 consecutive world titles and 2 what else do you want? Like, he's outstanding in every aspect.
He also became sort of outside wrestling famous with the Gable Stevenson Olympic gold medal play-by-play call, right? Like, and somebody that does play-by-play. Like, I have people ask me, like, what do you think? And I'm like, it's awesome because he's not your normal play-by-play guy, right? Like, he was coaching in that moment. He's literally saying what every good coach is thinking. And all of us who have coached, I'm like, go get it, go. Like, you hear yourself saying, and you're not yelling technical things with 8 seconds left. You're half coach, half fan, half I love this kid, half I love America. So, yeah, he's awesome. Mark, as a guy that's not an Iowa fan, but an Oklahoma State fan at heart, what do you think?
No, I mean, John Smith was one of my idols growing up. I was lucky enough when I coached at Iowa Central to bring John Smith in to do a camp at Iowa Central. And he didn't go to a lot of junior colleges, but we had some really good athletes. And I think he thought maybe he'd come in and see what it was like. And he spent a day doing a camp for a bunch of little kids, showing his low leg single, how he kind of got to that position, all, 5 or 6 of the different finishes once you get into it. And just listening to him go through things was quite a learning experience for me and for my coaching staff that was there. And the kids absolutely loved it. He signed autographs for everybody. I mean, this is an icon. This is, I always put Dan Gable on a pedestal for coaching, wrestling, what he's done for the sport. I really don't think John Smith is any further behind Dan. I think they're both there on the same step for what they've done for the sport of wrestling. And I don't know if anybody besides maybe Kale, what he's doing now, will ever meet those 3 guys' standards, what they were able to do for the sport. And that's just not wins and losses. It's how they built the sport of wrestling up internationally, bringing the women's program into it and supporting the women's program so it could be successful. I can't say enough good things about him. I know you guys are closer to John personally. Yeah. So, but just to watch what he's done over the years is absolutely amazing. He's going to be missed in the sport of wrestling. Anytime you lose somebody that important is going to be missed because somebody's going to have to take his place. And I don't know who that's going to be. I'm not talking about who's going to coach at Oklahoma State. I'm talking about who's going to build the sport of wrestling because John Smith is now stepping back.
Well, I posted a long-form interview, one of the first mat chats I did for track wrestling, one of the first video ones we did in his office. And I think at the time it had the most views of anything I'd ever done. And clearly it wasn't me. It was because it was John Smith and it was video and it was in his office. And funny story is he was really busy and he wasn't going to do it. And I called my mom and made my mom ask him to do it. So he did it. And, it was you guys, like nobody really says no to Jan. but it couldn't have been greater. I think GT and I have been fortunate enough to like sit at Coach's house and maybe have a glass of wine with him and just talk to him about life and stories. And it's interesting because I think John has more wrestling accomplishments than Cale or Gable. And I think, Gable has the most national titles and Cale's kind of, on the path for that. But if you're talking about a Mount Rushmore of American wrestling, it feels like those three guys are on there for sure. And, there's obviously debate, but, the fourth person I think would be the interesting one, but just unbelievable. And as GT said it great, we could probably just do podcasts just about that. I mean, I think the other thing is not only did John win, John might be the most recognizable two-time NCAA champ ever. People forget he didn't win 4. He didn't place as a freshman and was like the number 1 or 2 seed, maybe the 2 or 3 seed, and then lost to Jim Jordan in the finals as a sophomore. And then his low single. I mean, like, the stories of him just being in the gym at night, like 1 or 2 in the morning, and just doing that. And the one time I worked out with him, I never felt my legs get so tired in my life, because you feel like I have to meet his level. Not like how good he is, but literally his level, like get in position. And he can just stay down there longer than everybody else and in perfect position. It's not like most guys that get low, you just snap them. But he wants you to grab his head. He's going to go high C other side. So just, I hope Coach stays in the sport in capacity. So we'll talk probably more about it in 2 weeks. I think next week will be a full trials review. And maybe Grant will have new shoes for us by then in different colorways or something. If we're nice to him, we'll see. So anyway, all right, Olympic trials. So for people that know me, the minute the seeds came out, I was putting brackets together, and then a bunch of changes happened. But I have this in a Google document, and if you guys would like it at home, all you need to do is find me on social, message me your email address, and I will share it to you. We will try to do this both audio and visually. The seeds will start at men's freestyle and start at 57, which I think is the craziest one. Here are the seeds in order: Zane 1, Gilman 2, Dayton 3, Spencer 4, Nico 5, Suriano 6. Then Cronin, DeShazer, Lilladale, Jax Forrest, Marcus Blaze. GT, you and I talked back in January about whether Fix or Spencer would be the 3 and the 4, and how the 4 was probably better than the 3. Spencer gets the 4. For people that can't do the math without seeing it, which is totally fine, the top half of the bracket is Zane against the winner of DeShazer Lilladale, round 3 of Nico Spencer Lee, and then the bottom half is Suriano Blaze, winner gets Fix, Cronin Forrest, winner gets Gilman. If seeds hold, the semis are Zane, Lee, Fix, Gilman, and probably the biggest news here is that Vito is out. He would have been in the bottom semi, so that definitely changes things. Mark, you and I talked about this yesterday. My argument is, or our position is, Spencer Lee is positioned perfectly. He's got a guy that he's beaten twice. I think he's just a better wrestler than Zane Richards. And if he has to wrestle Gilman or Fix, it's going to be right off the scale. So I feel like the bracket's set up perfectly for him. But, you tell me if you see it differently.
No, I agree. I think a lot of these guys are going to struggle that first match, whether it's going to be Saturday or Friday. Maybe even the second match. You've got guys like Suriano wrestling a high school kid. Now, most people would think that's just going to be an absolute – Suriano's just going to kill him. But when you have a tough time making weight and you have to go out against a kid that's just nonstop movement, it's tough. And so don't be surprised if you see some of these lower-seeded guys beating some higher-seeded guys just because – right out of the get-go. I mean, Dayton Fix is going to have an advantage because he's going to have some more time to recover from cutting all that weight. Same thing with Gilman. Same thing with Nick Lee. But Or Spencer Lee, I'm sorry. Spencer doesn't cut a lot of weight, so I think that's probably his biggest advantage. And it's just going to be crazy.
This weight,
we went through this. Yeah, it's going to be nuts.
The two big weight cutters at this weight class are Gilman and Fix. Now they do have an advantage in that pigtails are coming into them. So, GT, your thoughts on either the Fix Spencer Lee 3-4 thing and then the bracket in general?
Well, I think one of the things, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't a lot of the seeds based off of like that pin points? Is that correct?
I think the seeds, yes, but yeah, I think so. But within that, I mean, I don't know if it's just here's the points and this is it, or I don't know if it was like the NCAA where, hey, we can do some manual manipulation. I do know when I asked Gary last week that he said the seeds would come out on Monday and there wasn't a seeding meeting per se. Which right. Is probably, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that the listeners hear that it's not just like an arbitrary, hey, we're just going to throw these guys at where we think that they should be at. I think there's some systematic approach to the seeds that is not just oh, well, once again, the people in Coralville, Iowa and Iowa City versus the people in Stillwater, why did 3 and 4 go this way or this way? I just want to make sure that there's probably a reasoning for it. I just don't have that reasoning. And once again, none of us were in the CD meeting. We're just basically reporting the data that has been provided to us by USA Wrestling. Once again, I know as you two jokers are nerds when it comes to seedings and points.
I think there's a compliment in there somewhere. We got called jokers and then it's a compliment, Mark.
Yeah, so exactly. Compliment sandwich there. But it's one of those things that I think as people that have listened to the show, we do a good job of understanding how rankings are they play into the system of what this particular thing. And once again, this is one of the most contested, tightest weight classes that we have because we still have to qualify for the Olympic Games. So whoever comes out of this is going to Turkey in order to try to qualify that weight class for the United States and would have to go get third over there. So there's a lot of gravity on the seeds. There's a lot of gravity towards the matchups that we're talking about. And to Mark's point, it's, this tournament. And then once again, you got to go do another one. So that weight cut that Mark was talking about is going to be crucial because you're only going to get 2-3 matches here. And then you got to go best 2 out of 3. So all of these, it does mean a lot in order to have hey, previous world team member Zane Richards, number 1 seed, pretty easy, right? So just want to make sure that we're reporting rather than testifying that this is how we were in the CD meeting and this is how this was supposed to go.
That's a great point to make. And I think the Zane Richards thing is the only one at this weight that was an auto pick, right? If you were the world team member in 23, you're the 1 seed. And that was if you didn't place a Worlds. And if you had placed a Worlds, you'd be sitting in basically the final 2 out of 3 because this was an Olympic weight. To me, if I had to pick ahead of time, I would have picked Vito. I'm just telling you because, and again, I'm one of the announcers and we haven't gotten that much communication from NBC. But the Friday night is when that semi would happen, Mark, that's with the athlete that is sitting to the semis. So the person in his spot, the person in Zane Rutherford's spot, which we'll talk about in a minute, they weigh in the morning and then will wrestle for 12 hours, give or take.
Yep.
So it's a massive recovery system. So, I mean, I guess let's just do front side picks here. I've got Spencer over Zane in the semi. I'm going to pick Jax Forrest to beat Cronin. I think Fix Soriano is going to be a shot clock match. I'll pick Fix, and then I'll pick Gilman in the finals. And if they wrestle that in the morning, Mark and I were talking, if they wrestle that in the morning, I'm going to pick Spencer. If they wrestle it at night and it's a 12-hour weigh-in, I'm going to pick Gilman. Mark?
Well, I think they do wrestle. I think they said they do wrestle in the morning.
But it might just be one of the matches. It might just be one of the matches, you know? Like, I don't know if they're doing the full 2 out of 3 in the morning. That's why I'm asking or saying.
Yeah, I think they are, but I could be 100% wrong. So I mean, either I'm right or I'm wrong. Well, there you go. But I would agree.
Write that one down. That's a word of wisdom there.
I would agree with you. I think Spencer Lee will be wrestling probably against Gilman, and if they do wrestle in the morning, which I think they are, I'm going to take Spencer just because of the weight cut.
Right.
I think these two are so close, and I think everybody's been waiting to see this match for a lot of years, wondering what would happen. I think Spencer's actually very healthy right now, and I think pound for pound, he's probably the best kid in this weight, and I think he's our best chance to qualify the weight if he went over to Turkey also.
GT.
All right. So I think basically Spencer Lee, I think, is the guy that I think is going to have the best run at it with who he's already seen on the top side. I think Zane is very crafty. I don't think people give him enough credit in what he did against Thomas Gilman last year. He's a very, very formidable guy. And once again, I think he plays it real close. And I think that's what has kind of got him into some trouble, like at the Pan Am Olympic qualifier, like wrestling a little bit close. I think because we all know how amazing Spencer is when he decides that he's in freestyle, like he's got some dangerous things like his leg lace and, just his ability to score. And I think freestyle has always kind of been a better style for him, even though he was extremely dominant in folk style. So I really expect that match with Spencer and Zane to either go one of two ways, either 3-2 or 10-0. Like if Spencer can get to like a trap arm or a leg lace, I could see that going Spencer's way. And I think that if Zane is to beat Spencer, it's going to be, 2-1, 3-2. I think on the bottom side, there's those matchups give me a little bit of pause. Suriano Fix is going to be interesting because, just because we're doing this on Tuesday, I'm going to make sure that I get it out here. It's a handsome Tuesday for Mr. Nick Suriano.
I knew you're like the hippest one. I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yeah. So
well played.
Once again, I think that's going to be a very interesting, intriguing matchup there. I think Gilman basically gets his way to whoever it is that comes out of the Suriano Fix match. And I think Thomas is probably a shoo-in to get to the finals against whoever is on the top. I think Fix is probably the one that would give him probably the most trouble. I don't think Suriano would give him as much trouble. Just in my opinion. But I think whoever then gets to the finals, I think it's going 3 matches. I don't think it's a two match deal. I think it goes all 3, and then get that guy a plane ticket and send him to Istanbul. And
who's your pick?
I think Thomas gets it. I think he finishes out the quad as the guy. I think that he's one of those guys that I think that just had a bad tournament. I think he just had a bad final X, and I think that he'll be just fine. So,
all right, here we go. 65. The seeds: Nick Lee 1, Yanni 2, James Green 3, Alirez 4, Bartlett 5, McKenna 6, Larkin 7, Gross 8, Pantaleo 9, Colo 10, Mendez 11, Nashon 12. Zane Rutherford sits to the bottom in the bottom semi. Let's explain the bottom semi. If you were a medalist at a non-Olympic weight, Zane was a medalist, a world champion at 70 kilos. You can go down to 65 or up to 74, and we'd heard both. You sit in the bottom semi. So basically, if you're listening to this, if you're in the 2-3 normal semi match and you win, you're the 2 seed, you now have to wrestle Zane to get to the finals. And the reason why they put him in the bottom is so that the top half guy, the number 1 seed, doesn't have to wrestle an extra match. Vito technically could go to the top half here, but he's not entered. But again, we saw a bunch of changes yesterday, so he could do that. We'll see. So top half, just for people that can't see this, Gross, Pantaleo. Pantaleo right off the scale. I think I would pick Gross. If it was in the evening, I'd pick Pantaleo. winner gets Nick Lee, I would pick Nick Lee. Bartlett, Nashon, I think Bartlett wins. Into Alirez. I think Alirez is super dangerous in this bracket. So my top half semi is Lee against Alirez. Next one, McKenna Mendez. I'm probably prisoner of the moment here, but I think Jesse Mendez can do it. I think he's a really good freestyler. He's an age group world medalist. Obviously, these guys all got gigantic credentials. James Green is one of the most fascinating guys to me. Hasn't wrestled in forever. Was the guy, but it's 70, not 65. We saw him try to get down to 65, and he just doesn't fit. But he said he lost a bunch of weight when he had his hip surgery, and he's good here now. I love James Green talking to him, and when he was with USA Wrestling, he couldn't have been more gracious. But I'm going to pick Mendez. And then Colo Larkin. I'll take Colo as a little bit older. I'll take Yanni to beat Colo. I'll take Yanni to beat Mendez. And then Yanni Zane, I think we should just set an over-under a number of bricks thrown. I don't even know who wins that. I'll pick Zane because it's Friday night. And then I got Zane against, I think I'm going to pick Alirez, and I'm going to pick Zane to make the team. So GT, I think Mark went first last time. Then, go ahead and go here with what your thoughts are.
All right. So on the bottom side of the bracket, I'm going to take McKenna over Mendez. I think McKenna is a dog. I think he's one of the best, most probably decorated athletes that has never made a team at this weight since he's been in the freestyle thing. He's done really well internationally. I think he was a silver medalist as either a U23 athlete. So I think he's got a ton of prowess. I got to take my boy James Green against whoever comes out of that matchup. I think with him being able to sit out that first match gives him a little bit more, I would say maybe recovery time. He's told me he's feeling really good. Once again, being able to coach, losing a little bit of just walking around weight, maybe not necessarily lifting as much, but still staying fit. I like that matchup. I think Kolodzik and Larkin. I think Kolodzik is extremely talented. I'd love to see Larkin get him just from a standpoint of I just want to see pandemonium happen.
Yeah, young talent too. Yeah.
Right. And I think Yanni versus James Green is a very, very intriguing matchup to me. Just from the standpoint that I don't know if they've ever wrestled. I can't think of a match between them.
Yeah, different eras, right?
Right. Well, and then once again, James was always at 70, and every time that James has gone to 65, it's been at an Olympic trials because he's just kind of in that in between weight, right, Mark? Right. He's never, and once again, I think that matchup is probably one of the ones that I'm most looking forward to if that were to occur. I think Bartlett or Alirez is fascinating to me. Once again, Bartlett did such a great job at the U.S. Open. But I'll take Alirez just from the standpoint of I got to pick one of the two. Okay, that's just crazy. Yeah. And then, of course, then on the top side of the bracket, I like Pantaleo versus Lee. I think also just another guy that is an absolute monster of a person. Alec Pantaleo is just a journeyman guy. I think at the U.S. Open last year in Las Vegas, wrestled 9 times to go back and get third. I mean, the guy is a monster. And
he was ranked number 1 in the world at 70 kilos at one point too. Yeah.
So I think that guy has a really good opportunity to beat Nick Lee, just from the standpoint of, his international experience. But I'll take Nick Lee versus Alirez. I think Nick Lee beats Alirez, but in a tight, highly contested throw the brick match. And then I think then Zane wins out against Yanni or whoever. And then I think Nick Lee is the guy.
Okay. All right. So what's interesting here, Mark, is GT and I think picked every single one opposite. So this will be fun.
I mean, I think Nick Lee comes out of that first quarters. I kind of agree with you. I think Pantaleo is going to have a tough time with the weight cut if he even makes it. I think Gross probably gets that match, and I do like Nick Lee over Gross. I like Bartlett and Alira's wrestling. I think Alira's is better. I think Alira's beats Nick Lee to make the finals on the top side. I think Grant, you got me thinking McKenna over Mendez, and I was going to take Mendez, but I think you're right. I think he's just too strong, too physical. I think James Green, if he's healthy, will beat McKenna. I think Yanni's going to come out of the bottom side over Kalazic. I think Yanni beats James Green. I think he's just got too much stuff. His flexibility is crazy. I think Zane beats him, and I think Zane wins the weight, and we'll go over to Turkey to wrestle, try to make our team.
All righty. 74. This is the first bracket where somebody's sitting. Dake is in the finals, and I say this sincerely, GT. I saw this on social. Did Dake's father pass away? Is that? I
have not seen that.
Somebody passed away in Dake's family, so condolences to the Dake family. It was Douglas Dakes, and I think that was his dad because he posted a picture of him wrestling with him as a kid. So the seeds here, and probably what's important to point out is David Carr's not wrestling. And the weird one is Keegan's not wrestling. And Keegan was in St. Louis Sunday doing a clinic and was fine. And then announced he got hurt Monday night. So anyway, the seeds now, and Dake is not a seed because Dake goes out to the finals. He's already waiting. Burroughs 1, Nolf 2, Quincy 3, Messenbrink 4, Shapiro 5, Vincenzo 6, the Bull 7, Facundo 8, Haynes 9, Tyler Berger 10, Jared Jacuse 11, Ladarian Lockett 12. Mark, you want to go first here?
Yeah, I mean, this weight has changed completely. Everybody wanted to see Shapiro and Messenbrink during the college season. Obviously, there were different, weights. But so we're going to see it in freestyle instead. Shapiro was down at the number 6 seed before, Keegan dropped out. So
right.
It's going to make it interesting. I think Burroughs wins that top side. I think he beats Haynes, there. I think Messenbrink, Shapiro is going to be a phenomenal match. I'm going to go with Shapiro. I think at freestyle, he might be a little bit better. I don't know why, but I just got a feeling. So I'm going to put Shapiro out against Burroughs, but Burroughs is going to beat him. I think Vincenzo is going to wrestle Monday. I think Vincenzo is better than Monday. So I'm going to pick him to win there. I can't see the bottom part of it. There you go. I'm going to take Marinelli over Berger. I think they've wrestled before. Then Nolf's going to beat Marinelli. Nolf will beat whoever comes out of that next bracket, Vincenzo. And I think Nolf's going to wrestle in the finals against Burroughs. I got to take Jordan. I think he's still the man. And then Dake. I mean, I can't go against Dake. I think he's the best kid at that weight.
All right. GT.
Uno Haynes. I'm going to take Haynes. I think Burrow beats Haynes. I think Myra Shapiro Messenbrink is an intriguing matchup. I'm going to take Shapiro over Messenbrink in freestyle. I think Burroughs beats Messenbrink and or Shapiro, so it's kind of a different whatever point. Vincenzo Joseph, JQ's. I'm going to take Vincenzo. Another intriguing matchup at the 3-6, Vincenzo versus Monday. I'm going to take Vincenzo over Monday. I think Marinelli beats Tyler Berger. I know that they've had epic battles at both like the Bill Farrell, the U.S. Open, things like that. So really cool matchup. I think Nolf beats Marinelli. I think Nolf then beats Vincenzo. Nolf versus Burroughs. Wow. What a matchup. I would like to see Burroughs beat Nolf just to go up against Dake and have that be a really cool matchup in the finals. But I'm going to take Jason Nolf to beat Burroughs, and then wrestle off Kyle Dake in the finals.
And Dake winning.
And then Dake being the person that represents the United States.
Yeah. So this way, just so people understand, the next 4 weights in men's freestyle, the USA is already qualified. They have what is called their quota, to use that term correctly, right, Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. So the winner of this is in the Olympics. I'll take Burroughs over Haynes quarters. I'll take Messenbrink over Shapiro quarters. I'll take Monday over Vincenzo. I think Monday's built for freestyle. Like, doesn't like to ride, really good in space. Vincenzo's got to find him, and you walk into shots that way. I'll take Nolf over whoever wins that. I think that's an intriguing matchup, but I think Nolf probably texts the next guy. I think Nolf over Monday in the bottom side, Burroughs over Messenbrink top side. And Jordan Burroughs is another guy, like you're talking about the John Smith conversation about GOATs. I just think like it's hard. Like, I mean, there's a lot of tread off the tires. So I'm going to pick Nolf to make the finals of the tournament, and then Dake 2 straight in the finals. So, all right, 86, excuse me, David Taylor, recent Nike athlete signee, sitting in the finals. Seeds, Zahid is in the bottom semi in a super intriguing one. Oh, the other thing to talk about quickly, Burroughs may wrestle somebody from Penn State every round, which, with all the heat. And then Starachi did not make it down to 74. But Burroughs was certainly going to go either Facundo Haynes, possibly Messenbrink, possibly Nolf, and definitely Dake. So the crowd there should be really interesting to hear. All right, back to 86. Sorry for circling back, boys. Taylor in the finals, Zahid in the bottom side semi. The seeds are Brooks 1, Marsteller 2, Hidley 3, Ringer 4, Hall 5, Srirachi 6, Max Dean 7, McFadden, Mirasola, Evan Wick, Pat Downey. I highlighted Srirachi in here just so people will be reminded that he's up at 86. I'll go first here. I think the top half of the Brook is Brooks all day. Brooks beats probably McFadden. I think Dieringer gets Hall. I think Brooks beats Ringer. Bottom side, it'd be interesting to see if Downey shows up. I think Starachi gets by him either way. Hidley, we have the 197 runner-up wrestling the 174 champ. Last time we saw something like this was Jaden Cox Dake. I'll pick the bigger guy, Hidley. Bigger human being, not like bigger person. Dean over Wick, Marsteller over Dean, Hidley over Marsteller, Zahid over Hidley, Brooks over Zahid, and then Taylor over Brooks. GT.
I think I have it pretty much the exact same. I think I'll take, Starachi over Downey. I think Hidley over Starachi. I think Marsteller makes his way to Hidley as well. I think Hidley is just too big. I think on the top, there's some really interesting matchups between Dieringer and Mark Hall, but I'll take Dieringer. The Mirasola McFadden. What a comeback for McFadden from being hurt at the US Open. I think Brooks is the guy that comes out of the top. I think Brooks then beats Zahid, and I think it's Brooks, David Taylor, and I think David Taylor is our Olympian. Once again, Nittany Lion on Nittany Lion there for the finals.
Yeah, and it could be Nittany Lion on Nittany Lion at 674 as well, possibly.
Yep.
Mark, you see anything differently here?
No, I really see it pretty much playing out the way both of you guys do. I think Brooks is a heavy favorite to make the finals. I don't see anybody in this bracket that could wrestle with him if he wants to wrestle. I know that it's going to be an interesting matchup with Zahid, and I think Zahid will end up wrestling him. But I just think Brooks is too good. I just think he's absolutely too good.
GT, how far was Zahid up on Brooks at Vegas in 23? Was it 8-0 or 8-2? Because
it was 8-2, I think.
Okay. And he got tired.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
interesting.
If you're coaching Zahid, you're like, hey, you're better than him in the first period. You got to go tech him. I mean, that's your philosophy there, or else you got in a lot better shape, one or the other. Okay, 97 kilos, super small bracket. Kyle Snyder sits to the finals. The challenge tournament, Jaden 1, Trumbull 2, Mike Mock 3, Colin Moore 4, Nate Jackson 5, Yellow 6, Schultz, Cassiope, Carroll. Mark, you want to go first here?
Sure. I got Jaden Cox making it to the finals. I think he'll wrestle more in the quarters or semis, yeah. And then I got Mock beating Ayala, and I got Trumbull beating Schultz. I got Mock beating Trumbull, and I think Jaden Cox beats him fairly handily. And so then you got the Jaden Cox, Kyle Schneider finals, and I've got Schneider winning 2-0 in the finals.
And Mark, you and I were there in the back when Snyder wrestled Jaden in Michigan. So, we saw those up close.
Yep.
GT?
I think the bottom side of this bracket will be very interesting. I think a lot of those guys are a lot tighter than their seeds are.
Yeah.
I think this is a very, very, I would say very tight bracket between all of the competitors from basically 5 through basically all the way down. I think it's about I think Jaden, if Jaden decides that he's going to be Jaden Cox, we've all discussed this at multiple lengths. Jaden Cox is one of the best pound per pound wrestlers in the world when he decides that he wants to be able to be the guy. And we've seen it multiple times where, in the Olympics in 16, and he's a monster when he wants to be. So I'll take Jaden to win the entire bracket. I think that his toughest matchup will probably be on the top between either Jackson or Colin Moore. Just my own personal opinion. I think both of those guys are outstanding. But I think Jaden wins this all the way out and then wrestles Kyle best 2 out of 3.
I don't have a lot to add except Colin Moore has wrestled Jackson a bunch of times and has pretty much run him down every time. Trumbull was a surprise number 2 seed to me, but again, I don't know the formula well enough to, I'm not even dispute it, but just to understand it. And, Grant, you and I know Jaden personally. I mean, Jaden's a Missouri guy. I know him. He may be the most fascinating guy to see here because we haven't seen him in a year. And just to see how he does. And obviously he had the weigh-in problems last time. So, all right, 285 or 125, 285, 125, which is 275, I believe. Mason Paris sitting in the finals. Seeds here: Zilmer, Gwiz, Kirk, Dom, Greatest American Hero, Lance, Gas Tank, D-Train, Hilger, Duran. Mark, you want to go first here or GT? I guess GT is probably your turn. Go ahead.
I think Demetrius Thomas wins against the 8-9 against Hilger.
Okay.
I think Zilmer beats Demetrius. Very intriguing matchup of young versus old. Don Bradley, I think, is in his 100th Olympic trials.
Yes. He's 271 years old. Yeah.
271. The ageless wonder, which is Don Bradley.
Yes.
I think the man deserves a lot of flowers for being relevant for so many years. But, he's wrestling a college guy. I could see Dom beating Hendrickson in just in the manner in which because Dom's very hard to score on. And I don't think that Hendrickson with his blast double is going to get through him all the time. I bet he gets him at least once. But I think that matchup is going to be very, very intriguing. On the bottom, I think Kirk beats Lance. I think Traub beats Smith. I think Gwiz beats Traub. I think Greg Kirkfleet upsets Gwizdowski, makes it to the finals against. I'm going to take probably whoever wins between Hendrickson, Don Bradley, and Zilmer. I think whoever it is, I think that they lose to Greg Kirkfleet, whoever comes out of those three. And I think Mason Paris is the guy that we send to Paris, barring anything else wild happening.
Marco.
Grant, I love you that you didn't pick a guy on the top. Is whoever comes out between three guys. That was actually my favorite part of the show so far.
Well, but listen, as long as I was going to hold him accountable if he didn't pick Kirk. Like if he
that was awesome. I'm gonna take Zilmer over Thomas. I'm gonna take Hendricks over Bradley. Hendrickson over Bradley. I'm gonna take Kirk over Lance, and I'm gonna take Jaron Smith over Traub, and then I'm gonna take Gwiz over him. I'm gonna take Kirkfleet over Gwiz. I'm gonna take Zilmer over Hendrickson, and I'm gonna take Kirkfleet to make the finals against Paris, and I'm gonna take Paris to be our representative.
I don't know. This is the one I struggle with. I'll start in the bottom half. I think I have it exactly the way you guys do. Kirk beats Gwiz, makes it to the finals of the mini tournament. GT, you're dead on the nuts, right? If it's an 8-7 match, Hendrickson wins. If it's a 2-1 match, Bradley wins. I'm going to err on the side of youth and take Hendrickson. And I think Hendrickson's just bigger version of Zilmer, so I'll take him. And I think I'll pick Kirk. Maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment. And I don't know. I'll take Paris, but I'm going to say 3 matches. And, it's interesting how many Penn State guys that we're picking to make the team. I think I picked Zane, and I picked Dake, and I picked DT, and I picked Snyder. So I have 4. And I think the interesting thing is if you set the over-under at 3.5, you pick the over. And if you set the over-under at 4.5, you pick the under. But, certainly Gilman is a strong possibility to make the team, and I feel like Kirk is as well. All right, I'm just going to run through these other ones. Sarah Hildebrandt. In all the women's tournaments, we have somebody sitting in the finals. Sarah Hildebrandt, top 4 seeds are Jimenez, Mortimer, Chavez, Golston. 53, Dom is in the finals. Jakara's in the bottom semi. Baker, Gomez, Helia Gallo, and Villascusa, top 4 seeds. 57, Helen Maroulis in the finals. Nobody in the semis. Moda Pettis, Martinez, Nettie, Duty are in the semis, or in the top 4 seeds, excuse me. 62 is interesting. Miracle is sitting in the finals. Jen Page is in the top semi. Macy Kilty, who's gone 2 out of 3, is in the bottom semi. Velti, GT, do you know how to pronounce this young lady's name? Adago Nawachku? Is that?
I usually just call her Adugo.
Adugo. Okay, she's a 2, Lang 3, Ortega 4. Amita Lore, number 1 seed at 68, or sitting rather. Forrest, Glaudet, Laramendi, Drury, top 4 seeds. And 76, which is fascinating, Adeline Gray is sitting, top 4 seeds. Blades, Welker, McCoyed, Diamond Guilford, top 4 seeds. In Greco, the top 4 seeds at 60, Ildar, Roberts, Tuma, Max Black. 67, Sancho, Omania, Perez, Stepanian. 77, Kamal Bay, Benji Peak. My goodness, I hope we see that final, GT, like bombs being thrown. Kikanuo and Rayvon Perkins, seeds 3 and 4. Spencer Woods is sitting in the finals against Sebi, Carlson, Bronigal, Stefanowicz. Alan Vera sitting in the finals. Joe Rao, Braxton Amos, Nick Boykin, Orendorf, and Colton Schultz in the smallest bracket. Only 6 other guys here: Kuhn, Freeman, Aiden Natal, Jacob Mitchell. So we did a pretty good job getting this done in about an hour, boys. Grant will be on the ground there. I will be on the mic there. I don't know. In 21, we were elevated because of COVID. Hopefully we're on Matt's side. I know Mark will be watching
at home, watching it on Peacock and USA Network. I set my parents up. It's $5.99 a month to get Peacock, which has USA Wrestling Network, for my parents that have rabbit ears. So $6 to watch an unbelievable tournament. I'm sure they want to have you keep your subscription, but you can obviously cancel it in 30 days. GT, I will see you out there, my friend. Safe travels. Congratulations again on DT. Marco, don't be afraid to send the encouraging words over the weekend. It's always helpful. 2 days on the mic straight as a one-man crew is
a lot.
Oh, you're gonna crush it, David. I'd be surprised if you didn't. So
I appreciate it. Jason Bryant, I talked to him this morning. He's going to get us all the pronunciations and everything else, which is super helpful. I want to thank Pete Isaias and Gary Abbott for putting me up as somebody that should get to do this and was chosen. So a huge opportunity for me and for everybody that's watching and listening. We appreciate you guys, appreciate all the support, and we will see you all next week.